Welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. Now, I've personally lost over 100 pounds, and I've applied what I've learned from my own transformation journey to help my hometown clients lose over 35,000 pounds in just 5 years. Now I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by delivering my best weekly tips, motivation, inspirational stories, and transformation strategies so that you can gain clarity about what you need to do to reach your goals and give you the confidence to take action. And the perfect time to start taking action is right now. So let's do this. All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission Podcast. It's your buddy, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, Adam Shively. I am here with episode 68, how your fiscal fitness relates to your physical fitness, with one of my favorite people, one of my favorite authors, Mike Michalowicz. You guys are going to love this episode. But first, we've got to make somebody podcast famous. As always, we got to do our iTunes shout out from the reviews section of the podcast. So this week, I've actually got one of my local clients. I love it when the local folks plug into the podcast. It just helps them get better results. So this is from Life is Good at 62. Here is what they say. Recently found the PhD, and I'm so glad I did. I'm beginning my meltdown journey, and being able to not only listen to Adam's awesome podcast, I actually get to be a part of his NGPT group. Adam, your passion, dedication, and determination to help others is contagious and right on point. Each podcast is meaningful and will certainly help me contribute to the million pounds. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you plugging in and supporting the Million Pound Mission. You guys out there, you can be my next podcast famous person. Just plug in to the review section on iTunes. I'll put a little link on how you can leave a review on iTunes in the show notes and in my blog. And be sure to subscribe and share this episode out because it is a good one. So speaking of supporting the mission, I've got one more ask of you to help support the Million Pound Mission and just kind of represent the brand. I've got a bunch of new Million Pound Mission apparel available. You guys can check that out on my website, www.transformationcoach.me. That's transformationcoach.me. Check the links across the top of the page. You will see an apparel link. Check it out. It's pretty awesome. And you can go out there and represent the Million Pound Mission. Now that I've asked you for something, I'm going to give you something for free. The PhD always likes to give something for free. And this week, it's another one of my tools that is just one of the go-to. It's an assessment. And anytime I have somebody come in to do one of my specialized programs, I have them fill this out as kind of a baseline. And this is called my Amazing Results Scorecard. A lot of you have heard my podcast when I talk about the Amazing Results formula. I mention it quite often. And the Amazing Results Scorecard helps you figure out how you stand in what I refer to as the 8 essential components of an amazing transformation. So check that out on my website, www.transformationcoach.me. Now, let's talk about this episode. Again, it's episode number 68. We are climbing up there, getting closer to that big 100 episode mark. I'm excited about that. We're going to do something special when we hit that mark for sure. But today, it's all about episode 68, how your physical fitness relates to your physical fitness, with my main man, Mike Michalowicz. And let's talk a little bit about Mike. He's got a great bio. By his 35th birthday, Mike had founded and sold 2 different multi-million-dollar companies. He was so confident that he had the formula to success, he became an angel investor and proceeded to lose his entire fortune. Man, that would suck. Then he started all over again, of course, and driven to find better ways to grow healthy, strong companies. And among other innovative strategies, Mike created something called the Profit First Formula, which I'm a huge fan of and I'm using, and a way for businesses to ensure profitability from their very next deposit forward. Now, Mike is also a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal. He is the former MSNBC business makeover expert, and he is a popular keynote speaker on innovative entrepreneurial topics. And, of course, he's a great author, as I mentioned. His books, Profit First, Surge, The Pumpkin Plan, and The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur are all excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And the thing is this. In this episode, we talk a lot about being an entrepreneur, and that's where Mike operates, and that's where he gives a lot of advice nationally and internationally. But his principles apply to the individual as well. So don't think, oh, I'm going to click this off. It's just about people who own their own business. You want to listen to Mike's interview because he had one of those rock bottom moments that I think a lot of us have. And it's such an inspirational and just it's a touching story about, I don't want to give it away, but eventually his little girl comes to the rescue, brings her piggy bank to the table to help the family out financially. And it's such a great story. So listen in for that. We talk about his rock bottom moment and how he thinks anybody should climb out of a rock bottom moment, whether it's because of financial situations or whatever. I think we've all, financial stress can impact us to the point where it just debilitates us. And if you're worried about that money, a lot of times people will say, oh, I'd love to do that program or invest in myself a little bit more, but I just don't have the money to do it. Or they're so stressed out about finances that it impacts their health. So there's a direct relation between that fiscal fitness and the physical fitness, and we dive into that with this episode. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this because Mike's just a cool guy. His humor and his positivity just shine, not only through his books, but in this interview, his website. All of his materials are really great, and I'm excited for you to get to know Mr. Mike Michalowicz. So here you go, episode 68. Let's do this. All right, my friends, I am psyched about today's episode. We're going to be talking about how your financial fitness directly relates to your physical fitness. I've got one of my favorite authors in the house, Mike Michalowicz. Mike, welcome to the Million Pound Mission. We appreciate your support of the mission and your time. How are we doing today?
Thank you, brother. Oh, it's a joy to be here, Adam. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So like I said, you are one of my favorite authors. You really seem to be out there helping a lot of small business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs with what you're writing. My two favorite books that you've put out are The Pumpkin Plan and Profit First. I want to dive into those a little bit, but they're so helpful. The reason I like your writing is you just write very conversational. It's like we're just sitting there talking back and forth. And I love how real you are. And that's another thing I love about your podcast, the Profit First podcast as well. So I know I've got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners out there in my audience, but I know as I've read your books, one of the funny things is I'm like, man, that relates directly to fitness. That relates to health. That can be applied to all sorts of relationships and things like that. So I kind of want to dive in and talk about entrepreneurs and stress, because that's one of the things that I've gotten the most out of your books and your podcast is how I can kind of reclaim control of my financial situation so that it reduces stress. I believe that's the link between financial fitness and physical fitness is that stress. So what are your thoughts on that initially?
Yeah. So in regards to the relations between physical fitness and fiscal fitness, very closely related. Actually, a lot of the Profit First concepts as I was developing, I researched out in the physical fitness industry. And stress is the kind of the peak of the mountain in that what I find, and this is my own story too, I'm sure your story too, is as we've developed our businesses, as we run our lives, more and more stress is put upon us. And the way out of it, we typically think is productivity. You know, if I'm so stressed, I got so much work going on, if I can just get more stuff done faster, that's the solution. And I found that ironically becomes the ultimate trap, because as we push ourselves harder and we do become more productive, we get more things done, but that also avails more time to do more things, and we stack more on our plate. So, just like in the physical fitness industry, if you were looking to run a marathon, you wouldn't prepare for the marathon by sprinting it. You would prepare for the marathon by building a muscle and slowly building toward it. But how most people are running the entrepreneurial marathon now is a sprint, and they're trying to run 10 marathons, and the stress is overwhelming. So I think not only are we becoming actually more overwhelmed in our business and keep on taking on more, I think it's compromising our health too. So what I did with Profit First is I looked at that and said, we need to get really simple systems in place that work with our existing behavior that have a extraordinary impact on getting the results we want, but actually by doing less as opposed to trying to find a way to do more.
Right. And I think that we do have a similar story where I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a similar story where we get into the whole entrepreneurial world because we want freedom of time and freedom of money. And then we get into it and we're like, I don't have any damn time.
Right.
And I'm not even paying myself. So it's, I had emailed you and I'd mentioned that, my entrepreneurial career had put me in the hospital 3 different times from anxiety attacks and passing out, sleeping enough. So is that something that's kind of common that you see among entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, I'm so happy you shared that because it's extraordinarily common, yet most entrepreneurs think they're the oddball. So I found that depression is most prevalent in the entrepreneurial community, more than any other community. And more people, I had the same thing. I actually had not anxiety attacks, but it manifested in heart palpitations, went to the doctor for examinations. He explained, you're totally quote unquote healthy and perfect. And the next day I'm going back to the doctor's office because my heart's freaking out. And it ended up being all stress related. So it's very prevalent in the entrepreneurial community, and we think we're lone islands though. And we think we don't have it figured out, so we just have to work harder. So the resolution is consistently work harder as opposed to work smarter. And the thing we need to do clearly is work smarter, but also realize you're not alone. Most entrepreneurs go through these struggles, and there is a way out.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, we just get caught in that cycle of what we do every day. And like you said, just work hard to work more, put more into it. And we're doing a lot of trying and not enough thinking. But I think a lot of those moments of change, whether it's with your physical transformation or your physical fitness transformation, there's that kind of rock bottom moment. And I remember what that looked like for me. But that's one of the things I love in your book. I wanted to see if you would be willing to share the piggy bank story.
Yeah.
Because I think it just totally hit home for me. And any parent out there, get ready because this is going to pull on your heartstrings a little bit. So if you would, let's talk about the piggy bank story.
Yeah. And this story, while this is maybe my story, I think, as you're pointing out, Adam, this is everyone's story. We've all had that rock bottom moment. It may manifest in different ways. But for me, it was in the entrepreneurial space. I had grown a couple companies and sold these businesses and made a lot of money in the selling of the businesses. What I thought and believed is that while I was running those businesses, I was never successful, profitably successful running them. It was when I exited. And so I was like, the solution to making money is to pump and dump. Just, work until you're exhausted. Don't make any money, but one day someone will come in and save you, so to speak. Well, because I had these 2, short-term successes, I said, well, I'm going to do more of this. And I became an angel investor. I actually started 10 companies simultaneously. I lovingly call myself the angel of death because now I find out I'm the worst angel investor ever. I had no right to be doing the type of work I was doing because I had no clue about it. And so all these businesses fell apart, and I started blowing money left and right, trying to salvage businesses that were unsalvageable and just putting more and more money into it. And as I was going through my economic or financial decline, I was logically, I could see it going, the money fading away quickly, but emotionally I didn't accept it. I kept on hoping there'd be that one turning moment, just, that one day when everything would be righted again. But it didn't happen. I got a call from my accountant. I'll never forget the day. I write in the book too. It was February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, 2008. I got a call from my accountant, and he said, you're basically, Mike, you're done. You got a tax bill you can't pay. You've got debt out the yin-yang. You should declare bankruptcy, which I actually never did. My ego was still to the point where I'm going to dig my way out of this. What happened though is we lost our house, our cars, we lost everything. And I had to reveal to my family what was going on, because up to this point, I had been lying to them by omission. I mean, I just hadn't said, my wife would ask me how things are going. Fine, everything's good. It was horrible. But now I could no longer, lie to my family. We were going to lose our house. So I sat down on that day with my wife and my 3 children in front of me. My youngest was a 6-year-old at the time. My daughter was 9. And I have another son. And we're sitting around the table, and I start telling him what's going on, and I start crying because I'm so embarrassed. My job as an entrepreneur is to be the provider, and I suspect people listening right now that we have defined a role for ourselves in our lives, be it an entrepreneur, be it in our careers or whatever. But we've defined a role, and often it's to be a provider, to provide for ourselves, our family. And I was the guy who ripped it all away. The provider is the one who stole it. So I'm crying. I was like sobbing because I'm so ashamed of myself and telling my kids and my wife we're going to lose everything. My daughter liked to go horseback riding once every couple of weeks, and it was a group lesson that cost $20, and I'm like, we can't afford it. It's all gone. And as I'm doing this, my daughter, she just jumps up out of the chair at the dining room table and runs away. And it's weird how, like, when you're in an intense moment, how everything kind of slows down. My mind goes, oh, she's running away. Like, she can't handle this reality that I've thrust upon us. And when she did that, I said to myself, oh, that's the answer. Like, running away is what we need to do. And I don't know for the people listening, like, what their darkest moment has been in their lives, but I do know they've had it. And I think the solution often is just run away as fast as you can. Go somewhere where no one knows you, start a new life, but just abandon the trashed up life you've left behind you. So she ran away. I was like, that's what I want to do. But it was only a moment later, she ran to her room. She grabbed her piggy bank and she ran as fast as her little legs could carry her right back to me, plopped it down, the piggy bank right in front of me, and looked up at me and said, Daddy, I will support our family. And it's a weird mix of emotion. Like, when that happened, I was so angry at myself and just hateful of myself. Ultimately, suicidal thoughts were streaming through my mind. But at the same time, I had this kind of pride, the sense of humbleness. What my daughter did was remarkable. She put her life savings on the line. And that became a turning moment for me. Now it wasn't like that moment I woke up and said, oh my God, I got to fix everything in my life. I know the solution. I actually went through depression for about 2 years. And for me, depression was a lot of boozing. I'm actually not really a drinker at all, but I was boozing then. Insomnia. I just watched television all the night because I couldn't sleep. And that ultimately became the turning moment. I remember about 2 years into this depression, just trying to figure things out. I was watching television and a fitness instructor came on and started sharing physical fitness solutions, ones that work with our natural behavior. And as she's saying this stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the solutions for my fiscal problems, my financial problems. And that ultimately became the inception of Profit First.
Yeah, I love that you transitioned, but you forgot one of my favorite parts of the story. Was it Cheetos or Doritos that were all over your shirt? Because the description, Mike's describing, he's
visual,
like, Cheetos all over my shirt, and I lean closer to the TV, and it's like your soul lit on fire when this guy starts talking about eating from smaller plates, and that became your inspiration for Profit First. So was it the Doritos or was it the Cheetos?
It was Cheetos, and here's the irony: I don't even like Cheetos. I don't like the flavor of it. I don't even like them. But I'll never forget it. I had this white T-shirt on. It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm watching infomercials. Suzanne Summers there is clapping away at the Thigh Master. And I just kind of like look away from the screen and I look down and my shirt is covered with Cheeto stains. I mean, it looked horrible. And there's beer bottles sprawled all out in the room. And I'm like, what the F is going on with me? And that triggered, it didn't trigger, like, again, it doesn't trigger as big aha moments, but in retrospect, it was significant. I simply said, what am I doing watching this bull? And I flipped the channel. And that's when this fitness instructor came on. And I really, figuratively and literally started cleaning up my act. It turned everything around.
So I know that there's a lot of people, like you said, that have been through those low points. There may be some people listening right now that are right there right now. What kind of advice would you give that person, especially if they're struggling like you were with the financial world kind of coming down on top of them? Like, what were the first few steps that you started to make to right the ship?
Yeah. So first thing is to realize I'm not alone. Like that was the big thing. I felt so isolated. I was the only person ever to go through this. There's lots of others that have gone through it, are going through it, will go through it. So just that realization. The second thing, though, that was huge for me was the concept of taking very small steps, lowering the bar. The funny thing is, in the weight room or in the entrepreneurial boardroom, it's this concept of raise the bar is always out there. Push yourself. What's your X factor? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? What are you going to achieve in your life? And I want to lose 100 pounds, or I intend to grow my business to 100 million. Whatever it is, we set these big goals out, but the execution is what matters. And we're not going to lose 100 pounds in one day. You're not going to make $100 million in one day. And when we set these big, hairy, audacious goals and don't achieve it, it can be very frustrating. The thing I found is setting those goals is important. So you have kind of a road mark or a landmark of where you're headed, but the execution needs to be small steps. And so what I did with Profit First is I realized none of my companies had ever been profitable. I made money only in the sale of the business, but they weren't profitable. I realized that I needed to bake profit into my business. Like every transaction, every day, every moment, there would be profit. And what I also realized is that if I started with a big profit goal of I'm going to, 30% of my revenue is going to be my profit. I'm going to be 30% going to that bottom line. I knew that that's like going to the weight room where, I haven't lifted weights in years. And I'm like, I'm going to bench 300 pounds. It would rip my shoulder sockets off. I start with 25 pounds and see if I can even handle that and build my way up over time. And so that's what I did with profit. What I did in my business was I started allocating 1% of the money coming in to my business to profit. And the nice thing about this system, by the way, you can use in business, but you can use it in your personal life. Money comes in from whatever form of income you have, from a job or however you're making money. Start allocating a very small percentage. It's the pay yourself first principle. Hide it away from yourself. So in my business, I started saying, well, starting today, I'm going to start allocating 1% of my money to profit. And I noticed that, say $100 came into my business as a deposit or something, that doesn't, what I'm taking is $1. It's 1%, $1. And I know if I can run my business off $100, I can run my business off $99. The amount I'm taking away is inconsequential to how I ran my business life. Or if you do this in your personal life, it won't affect your personal life. But you will notice that, wow, you're starting to accumulate a little bit of a reserve. And that will start to build confidence, the muscle, if you will. Then you go to 2%, then maybe 3 or 4. And over time, you start allocating more and more money to the profit account. And your business builds the muscle. It forces your business to figure out, as you put more and more toward profit, how to get leaner, meaner, more cut in the business space, if you will, and profits assured.
And this is about the time that I had my aha moment when I was reading the Profit First book, is that I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as small business owners especially, that kind of create something of our own. We don't have that franchise backing. We don't have that recipe cooked in. We may not have the business degree. We may not have the marketing degree. We kind of try to fill in the gaps through books and online courses. And then this hit me and I thought, you know what? So what Mike's saying here is I can actually pay myself and feel okay with it. I think a lot of business owners have that guilt of, I really should sock this away just in case I can't pay myself that much. And there's that guilt there. And your formula in Profit First relieved me of that. I said, this will work if you follow these percentages and it's okay to pay yourself. So that was huge.
Yeah. And I would say almost more than okay to pay yourself. It is critical you pay yourself. You see, in our business, what we do with Profit First, we allocate a percentage to profit. We also allocate money to the compensation of the owner of the business, which I argue, hands down, is the best employee in the business. Because, I tour the world speaking on Profit First. I'm actually hopping on a plane again tomorrow to speak on Profit First. And I know exactly what's going to happen during the presentation. I'm going to ask people in the audience, who here has employees. They're all small businesses. Most of them have employees, a handful of employees. And I can pick any person in the audience. I'll say, what's your name? And the person will say, my name's Adam. I'll say, Adam, tell me the name of your best employee, just the first name. And they will never declare themselves. They'll say, oh, Lucy or Mark or Dave or Joan. They specify someone else. And I'll look at them and say, listen, we've never met before. I haven't visited your offices, but I think you're not telling me the truth. Let's tell me if this is accurate. And I go, Adam, does anyone work as hard as you for your business? Have you sacrificed time with your family and friends? Are you the best salesperson for your business? Are you perhaps the best operator of your business? Can you do more than anyone else at the company? And then they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that is, and have you done all that stuff at times for no pay? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that is the definition of the world's greatest employee. Extraordinary effort for no compensation. Like if I can get you, Adam, to come to my office and do all that stuff and not have to pay you, holy crap, I would die to have you. So our businesses should be dying to have us because the business has clearly the best employee. If we don't pay ourselves, it's a matter of time before resentment forms. I mean, think about the other person. That other person we said, Joan, she's the best employee. What if we said, hey, no, we're going to stop paying you and you got to work more? What would Joan say? Go stick it where the sun doesn't shine. We'd never do that. Yet we're doing it to ourselves. And what happens is resentment forms. So we need to be very explicit in caring for ourselves. And so we set up an account called the owner's comp account. As money flows into our business, we allocate a percentage of that money to the owner's comp account to pay for our lifestyle. Now, there's a clear distinction we have to make here between profit and owner's comp. Owner's compensation, like I said, is to pay for your lifestyle. That your lifestyle should live within that means. The profit money is money above and beyond, and it's a reward. It's kind of like in the fitness industry. You have those cheat days where go have that cheesecake or whatever you want to have because it's cool. That's a celebration and award for the progress you've made. So the profit account in a business is when you, on a quarterly basis, when your business has a profit accumulated there, it distributes it to you, the owner or owners, if there's multiple owners, to celebrate with. And maybe initially when you get this started, maybe it's not huge money. Maybe it's like $50 or $100 in there. But $50 is a pretty good lunch. $100 might be a pretty nice dinner with someone else. And you start to change your relationship with your business because now your business is rewarding you for taking the risk to start it, and it's compensating you for being the best employee in the business.
Yeah, and as soon as I set up all these accounts, it was just a sense of relief that the thing. It was funny because in the first book that I read of yours, The Pumpkin Plan, I read it twice in a row, and I was like, okay, I got to read it again. Awesome. Back to back, twice in a row.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
With Profit First, I had a hard time getting through to the end because I was just like, I need to take action right now. I just need to start doing this. Like, I was excited to read about it, but I was even more excited to just be doing it. And I was like, I want the next quarter to happen so I can do these bonuses and run more numbers and see this thing work. So it was really, really cool. But so we have the operator's account, the owner's account. Yep. We've got the profit account. Let's talk about the other accounts that you have set up, because I think those are important as well.
Yeah. So we have a tax account, a income account, and a operating expense account. So these are 5 accounts. I call it the foundational 5. So I'll go through the 3 new ones I just introduced. So the income account, I think every business should have this. And you can do this, again, if you don't own a business, you can do this in your personal life too. An income account is a depository-only account. What I mean by that is in my business, when I get deposits, money gets deposited in here, but I never pay a bill out of it. The goal here is, I call it the serving tray. Just like Thanksgiving dinner, what's going to happen at Thanksgiving is that golden turkey comes out, it gets displayed to everyone oohs and ahs, some people take pictures or whatever. And then we never tell the guests at the table, hey, everyone, just grab your knife and fork and dive into the turkey on the serving tray. Every man for himself. Okay. It's like, no, we carve the turkey. And the reason we carve the turkey is to apportion the turkey to each guest, to ensure that every guest gets their portion that they desire. We carve it up. And so that's what the income account acts like in our business. When money flows in, it is simply it acts as a serving tray. We simply for display purposes. So I can look at my income account and see how much money is flowing into my business at any time. But then I will carve up that turkey, if you will, into the remaining 4 accounts. Now, we talked about profit and owner's comp. So the portions of the money from the serving tray income account will go there. The next account, the 4th account, is called tax. And the tax account is to pay your taxes. Many small businesses have quarterly taxes. Others have taxes taken out of their paycheck. And then regardless of how it happens, the business will either reimburse the owner if they were paying their taxes, and the business will reimburse the owner for paying those taxes, or the business will just pay the taxes directly to the government on a periodic basis, usually quarterly. The idea of this tax account is we started our business for usually two reasons. One is to experience a lifestyle that we desire, we've envisioned, to live a purpose perhaps. The second reason we started our business is for financial freedom for most people. And absolutely, I think the definition of financial freedom is not getting caught off guard by taxes and panicking, saying, how am I going to pay these bills? I think the definition of financial freedom is when the tax bill comes, your business takes care of it for you so you don't have to worry about it. That's what the tax account is. And then the fifth and final account is operating expenses. And that is what we run our business off of. The key to this is it's kind of like the envelope system, which has been floating around for centuries. The envelope system is the concept of where money flows into our life. We put a portion into different envelopes, one into like maybe a food envelope, another one into the mortgage or whatever. And so you're pre-allocating money to its purpose. And then when you go food shopping with that food envelope, you have to realize that is all the money available for food. You can't go beyond that. You've pre-budgeted for it on a real cash basis. So in our business, the operating expense account is the only money available to run our business. When we can't pay a bill out of that account, that's our business telling us we can't afford that bill. That if we want to sustain this profitability, we have to figure out how to work on this operating expense account. We basically reverse engineered profit. We've determined what our profit is in advance, and we're committed to it. Now the remainder is for operating expenses, and the other accounts. And so you have to live within the operating expense account. And when you can't pay a bill, you got to find a way to never incur those costs again. Or in business, you can increase your margins, attract more revenue. You have to find a way to work with the percentage in the operating expense and never compromise it. Never pull from the profit, owner's comp, or tax account.
I love that. I love the concept that you talk about of eating from smaller plates. And that's exactly what you just described. So if you wouldn't mind, I know that we kind of backtrack to the infomercial. Yeah, sure. That's what you're talking about. But that is, again, one of those moments where I was like, this applies to health. This applies to wealth. This is really a nice little tie-in. So let's talk a little bit about eating from smaller plates and how that applies.
Yeah. So this was kind of like the mind-blowing thing for me. I was watching that fitness instructor, and she explained that it's so hard for us to change our behavior. That's what most people try to do. Like in the fitness industry, P90X is kind of the hot thing now, and 3-4 years from now will be something new. And she explained that P90X fails for most people. And the reason is it requires an extraordinary behavioral change. I don't work out ever, and now I'm doing P90X, which makes me work out 4 hours a day. Yeah, you'll get results, but only if you can stick with it. And the vast majority of people don't. So she explained, instead of trying to change our behavior, the most successful systems are systems that actually leverage our existing behavior, meaning we don't need to change. It just channels us to get the results we want. And then she started off with this first principle of small plates. And what she explained was that in the U.S., but this is true globally too, the obesity rate has skyrocketed. And the result is is because of our caloric intake. We take in more calories than ever before. She goes, but you have to understand there is kind of a guiding principle behind this. It's the size of the plate we eat off of. 200 years ago, when George Washington was around, the plate that he ate off of was the size of what we consider a coffee saucer or a dessert plate. Literally half the size of what we use today. But the behavior back then was identical to today. So back then, G-Dubs, the real G-Dubs, George Washington, G-Dubs would fill up his plate, and as his mom told him to, clean off your plate, Georgie, eat everything that's on it. Well, we do the same. I fill up my plate. My mom used, growing up, eat everything's on your plate. There's people starving, Mike, somewhere. You got to eat. Right. So so the principles are wired into us behaviorally. Fill up your plate, eat everything that's on the plate. But the plates say are double the size, so therefore our serving portion is double the size, fill up the plate, and therefore our consumption is doubled because we eat everything on the plate, and therefore our waistline is doubled. She explained a real simple principle. Reduce the size of plates that you have at your house, and you'll you continue to behave the same way. Fill up the plate, eat everything that's on the plate. But now your portions are forced to be smaller because you can't put more on the plate. You'll fall over the side. So our consumption actually starts to decrease. So it's amazing. It works in our fitness, but it also works in our financial accounts. What we're doing with these different accounts is instead of having that one account, which most business owners do, they have one single account, all the money flows in there, it all piles up in there, and they see this one big massive plate and they start, quote unquote, eating off it. They start paying bills and stuff. What we're doing is dividing the money up so it's in these small plates. And now the operating expense account is much less than that one primary checking account. So you've actually served the appropriate size portion for you, and that's all your business can, quote unquote, eat. And they'll bring about profitability.
Yeah, and that was a total game changer for me. And I think that any other business owners are going to have, if you really give into this concept, it's going to be a huge just stress reliever as you learn the profit first system. And I'm about 3 months in now, and I'm starting to get my rhythm of how the whole thing works. And I understand where that operating expense account needs to be to feel like in our comfort zone and like, okay, this is cool. I can write myself a paycheck or bump up the profit and just like you said, instead of eating off that one giant plate and just saying, well, yeah, we could probably afford to buy this new piece of gym equipment or whatever. It's all just a micro view of how all the different accounts work together. But then you see, okay, yeah, I can still pay myself because that has nothing to do. It's separate from the operating expense and what the business is running off of. So the smaller plates, man, it was the deal for me. Yeah.
It works, and you got to just do it slowly. So I tried this at my house, by the way. So my sons, both in their teenage years, the food consumption is uneffing believable. I mean, they go through like a box of cereal every hour. And what I notice is my boys will take the cereal box and they pour it into the bowl until it overflows. There's Cheerios all over the place, and they start chomping away. So what I did was accidentally, I'm doing air quotes here, I accidentally broke the bowls and went to Walmart to get replacement ones. Now, the key is this. If I got bowls that were half the size, those goons, they would notice. They'd be like, oh, what happened? And they would now start, serving themselves 2 bowls. So the key is to slowly reduce the size. So I got bowls that were slightly smaller, and they didn't notice. They just filled them up like normal. And then a month later, I accidentally broke those bowls and got slightly smaller. It took about 3 iterations or 4 iterations, but I got the size down in increments. The same is true for our business. I think when people implement profit first, where the system fails them is when they try to go all in. They're like, I've never been profitable. Starting today, I'm going to have a 30% profit. I've never paid myself before. I'm going to pay myself 40% of the top line. Well, 40 plus 30, only leaves about 30% left to run your business. And we didn't even address taxes yet. It's such an abrupt change that can crush a business. So the key is let's just get a slightly smaller plate and let that work for a while and then reduce the size of the plate again. So instead of starting, your owner's comp at 30% of your top line, maybe we start at 10% or 20% and see how we do and settle into it and then take another step forward. Very similar to fitness. You build until you get to that kind of ceiling, and that's when you have the breakthrough and then you push again. But you don't do it all at once.
Right. I've got a similar concept. At our fitness center, I've got a personal training program that I call the Level Up program, where I set different levels. It's kind of like martial arts testing, and they have to hit certain marks and they kind of go to the next level.
That's perfect.
But in the training, it's very small. Like part of the test is you have to be able to row 1,000 meters under a certain amount of time. And in their training, we break it up. They don't do 1,000 meters every workout. They're doing sets of 225 meters. And then the next round, it's 250 meters. And then the next round, it's 275 meters. So it's like 2 or 3 pulls on the row are different, and they don't even feel it, but they're keeping the same pace that I want their body to adapt to 1,000 meters. And all of a sudden, they're knocking out huge personal records. So it's pretty cool. It's the exact same thing. Now, with the smaller plates, with the small incremental changes, now you recommend in the book a 3% quarterly adjustment. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah. So And 3% is the smallest adjustment. I think businesses, once you get into the swing of things, can go even more aggressively. But we talked about the foundational 5 accounts. Remember, the income account is a deposit-only account. It's a display account. So we're never going to touch that. Just money flows in so we can see it, that turkey, but then we're going to carve it up. The remaining 4 accounts are going to all have percentages that add up to 100%. And this represents the portion of that income account that we're allocating to these different accounts. So the profit account, just as an example, let's say 10%, we get into a 10% profit. So every time money flows into income, 10% of that will ultimately be transferred or allocated to the profit account. And then let's say for owner's comp, just for real easy numbers, let's say that's 10% too. And let's say the tax account is 10%. Again, just for easy numbers. I'm not suggesting these percentages. And then that leaves 70% for the operating expense account. So 70 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 100%. Well, what we do is we run our business like this for a quarter. And then I suggest a 3% adjustment. And what I mean by this is we adjust the accounts that are benefiting us, which is the profit, owner's comp, and tax account. We increase the percentage allocated to that, and then we reduce the equivalent percentage from the operating expenses. So we may say, let's move profit to 11%. Let's move owner's comp from 10 to 11%. Let's do the same for tax. Let's move that to 11%. Well, now it's 11, 11, 11. The OPEX used to be 70%. We have to reduce that by 3%. And that's where the 3 comes from. By 3% for the thing to balance out again. And now operating expenses is 67%. So you've improved the reward you're taking for yourself, profit slightly. You've improved the lifestyle account, if you will, the money we're paying ourselves from owner's comp. And then the tax, as we improve our profit and our compensation, our tax, the dollar amount will increase. This is how the law works. So we have to reserve more for that. But also now put pressure on our operating expenses, saying, how do we cut our operating expenses by 3%? Now, what I found, Adam, is that most businesses that implement Profit First can easily cut costs by 10, sometimes even 15%. A lot of business owners incur unnecessary costs. Like they buy that software system that they never use, and they're paying a monthly subscription, and right. They don't use that software. And there's no need for it. So you can cut certain costs. Other costs really are investments that we're not extracting value out of. Maybe you have a membership in some kind of program, and you're paying for it, but you're only using a little bit of it. I think those cases we need to squeeze the juice out of those, like extract all the value from it. I found I had a CRM and I had a separate system that did our email drip campaigns, a marketing campaign. And what I realized is once I really investigated, the CRM also had this automated software capability to send emails out, and I didn't even know. Well, once I discovered that, it was better suited for me. I was able to get rid of the drip campaign software and save a substantial amount of money because I had one package I was already paying for that had it, and I didn't even realize. So you can squeeze the value out of things. The lesson here is always this. When you reduce your operating expenses, you have to investigate in your business how to reduce your costs appropriately, cut what I call the fat, but don't ever cut the muscle. That'll hurt your business. And then how do you increase margins? How do you charge more for what you do so that you have more profit baked into every transaction?
Right. And the system's working. I mean, I think the beauty of it, again, it comes back to that stress. And so many people, whether they're business owners or not, that financial stress leads to that moment of, like you said, feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling depressed. And that leads to a hugely negative health impact. That's where people start to give up on their fitness. They start to eat poorly. They don't sleep as well. And it's that downward spiral. So, I know we're coming close on time here. I want to be respectful of your time, but what would you say to somebody, since Mike, you've been there, you've done that, you've escaped that situation. Like if you were sitting in a room with somebody and they're just feeling kind of buried underneath that pressure and that stress, like what would you tell them to get them fired up and get them moving?
So I would get really, really honest with myself, and I have done this. Really honest with myself. Am I getting comfortable with something I don't like? Am I starting to accept something just because I'm comfortable with it? So when my business struggle, actually any aspect of my life, when I'm in a struggle, It's hard to do this, but I really get honest with myself and saying, am I fearful of the effort it's going to take to get out of this, and have I just become comfortable in the misery that I'm experiencing? That's the trap. Business owners that struggle, and I think this is true in all aspects of life, but business owners that struggle often are just in their routine and expect that if they just keep doing it, they'll get out of it, even though it's not working. And they also say, but I'm just familiar with this, and maybe this is the way life is meant to be. I think we have to then decide to make a new outcome for ourselves, but it has to be a decision. We have to commit to it, saying, I'm going to try something new. I am committed to a new outcome, but also realize that means the actions will have to change. Because if we keep doing the same actions with an expectation of a different outcome, that's just lunacy. It doesn't happen that way. So if you're stuck, first decide I'm committed to being permanently unstuck. Then seek out different actions, knowing this, whatever actions you're doing now clearly are not the actions to continue. They have to stop. It has to be replaced by something new. And then the final thing is start with small steps. I said this earlier, but I got to drive this point home. Is if you try to get your business fit overnight, it is such an abrupt change. It usually causes injury to the business, and we revert back to how it was, or even worse. So once you've decided to take a new action, once you're committed to dropping the actions that aren't working for you, take new actions on, but slow, small, consistent steps will get you to where you want to be.
I love it. And I've said before, for things to change, we have to change. For things to get better, we have to get better. So your words are wise and right in line with that, my man. Now, I want to make sure that everybody can connect with you. Like I said, I am a subscriber to your Profit First podcast. I'm a reader of the books. I'm sharing books with my clients. So what are the best ways for people to connect you in your story and follow along with the Profit First adventure?
Well, thanks for letting me share. There's two ways. One way is you can go to my website, which is MikeMichalowicz.com. Now, I know my last name is like the most Polish name ever. So here's how you do it. Go to Google and just type in Mike, M-I-K-E, hit the space bar, and then type in Mick, M-I-C, Mike Mick, and you'll see the drop down, and you'll see this massive Polish Michalowicz name. That's me. Click on it. But here's a better shortcut. Is my nickname in high school is Mike Motorbike. The irony is I've never driven a motorbike, but it was Mike Motorbike. So if you go to MikeMotorbike.com, that'll forward you on to my website too. And either way, once you get there, all my books, I have the free chapters from them, so you can explore it before you make any purchases. I'm a blogger and a podcaster, so it's all there. And I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. So if you sign up on the site, you'll get all of my most popular articles I wrote for the Wall Street Journal that are now in their archive. You get them for free.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a steal right there. And before I let you go, Mike, I just want to take a second to say thank you and acknowledge you, because you're putting so much great stuff out there. The stuff you're putting out there, like I said, it's very relatable, as you're kind of a hero to the small business owners, but your stuff is relatable across the board. And I just appreciate that so much. And I appreciate you making time. I know you're super busy. Like you said, you're flying out across the globe tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow morning.
Spread the good word of the Profit First. But, I really am honored and appreciative of the fact that you said yes when I invited you to come on the show, when I reached out to you. So that means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to my audience, and I'm just excited to share your story with everybody that can, because I know that it's impactful. So thank you very much, my friend.
Adam, thank you. It's been a joy.
All right, everybody. So as always, when we have a special guest on the show, I like to challenge you to take action in the next 24 hours. Like Mike said, it can be a small step that makes the difference. We don't have to think we have to fix everything all at once. So in the next 24 hours, what action step can you pull from this conversation? What can you do to improve your financial situation, whether you're a business owner or not? Maybe it's just eating from those smaller plates, right? That's what we want to do. We want to take action in the next 24 hours and see if we can improve both our fiscal fitness, reduce that stress, and improve our physical fitness along the way. And as always, I like to end the show by saying, get out there and own it every meal, every workout, every day. I will see you on the next episode. One last thing before I let you go today. So many of you have been contacting me about taking action. Where's the best place to start? What program should I be on? So I went into the Transformation Lab and I created something new. It's my Transformed Academy, and registration is officially and finally open. All right, I'm loading up all of my best workout protocols, all the follow-along workouts that you love, and developing more every month. I'm loading up all my best nutrition programs of all types. As I talk about, you need the right tool for the job, whether that's paleo, low carb, high carb, carb cycling, clean eating, keto, whatever. You've got the right tool, and we're going to teach you how to use that tool. Then we also have accountability groups, coaching calls with me, and so much more. The best part is the information never gets stale because I add new programs every 90 days. And the even better part, you're going to freak out when you see the price. Head on over to www.transformationcoach.me and check out the Transformed Academy.